to the Village Sessions podcast, episode 5.
Bringing wisdom home.
Yeah.
You guys want to go through these? The stress is so nice.
Michelle,
I feel like I should do a twirl.
Stunning.
You should. Let's stand
She's
up.
doing a stunner
Stand up.
right
Show
now.
us the back.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah. My gosh. Even with the
Low
haircut
cut.
too. So
Looks
ideal.
great.
Yeah. Where is this dress from?
Bagoose.
Love Bagoose.
Yeah.
Love me some bagus.
It's so comfy. It's so soft. So yeah, I love it. And then the pendant is Suzanne.
Yes.
We have many tops and
Bagus.
bottoms too.
Yeah,
from
I have quite a
Bagoose.
bit. Yeah, quite a bit.
What about you,
I
Mom?
love it. This is your dress.
Oh,
I'm second handing from Corey last season.
yes, the pregnant dress.
Pregnant dress.
Oh,
We're passing it on.
I love it.
And then this is Indigo Luna. This is their sweater set.
Okay.
And then the normal. This is Cleopatra's bling, and then I have a 22 karat gold chain that I matched with it.
No earrings today.
I went simple.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love the simple look on you.
Yep.
I'm wearing Mother jeans, the distressed / destroyed wash. And then this is from Revolve and same Monarch earrings. That's what I got
Beautiful.
on. And today we are going to talk about, actually, this is going to be a part 2 of our dopamine episode that we had last time. And there were a couple things where we were like, ooh, this would be a really great continuation of the topic. And we're going to kick it off just by saying that essentially what we're going to segue into is an expansion of the phrase that Michelle said on the first one. So if you guys have not already watched the dopamine episode from last week, please go watch that. There was an element in there where Michelle was like, yeah, how we engage with dopamine now is rewarding ourselves based off of inactivity. Yeah, so we're actually going to have a whole episode about what inactivity has presented us with in our modern days. So whether it is like the obesity crisis or this element of stubborn weight and people trying to figure out how to lose weight and what that might require in the reorientation of their mind and body. So Michelle, would you like to begin this conversation?
Yeah, it's actually a continuation, right? So like last week, I was like, actually, I had some more to say.
She's
What
like, I
about-
wanted to say this, and this. And we're
This
like,
is-
well, we should do it.
okay,
Let's do it.
yeah. So I was like, okay, I have some things to say. Like, for example, emotional eating and different types of, coming from the myofunctional world, we talk about oral fixations and stuff like that. And also the connection between the lips and oxytocin and other neurotransmitter pathways through the mouth, right? And there is such an interesting kind of crossroads right now within women's health, where women are literally becoming on the outside that which they think about themselves. And, when I was in nursing school, what was this, almost 40 years ago, which is hard to believe, we actually had parameters for calculating obesity. So above a certain BMI or above a certain parameter, it was considered obese. And even now, those parameters, when you put them on people are like, raw, like the rejection. They're all like, you're fat shaming and you're this and this. And I'm like, are we though? I mean, because in physics, we have a whole, like calculation related to, what we would consider BMI now, which is height, weight, and then the function, what we're expecting that machine to do. I'm just saying, physics here, what can happen with the musculature, with the size, there's things that as a 5'3", 125-pound woman, there's not a lot. There's some things I physically cannot do, right? But you give it to a taller, bigger guy, and then it moves, right?
Sure.
So that's just physics. And yet me putting on weight is not going to help that. It's actually there's an inverse proportionality here. So I have increased weight, decreased function, right? So the thing I did was I might have provoked Corey a little bit. And so I brought up some subjects. We had a very lively, juicy conversation about women that go into different spaces for health and come out on the other side of that not even as well as they were when they went in, right? And so that led us to, let's talk about these concepts related to dopamine neurotransmitters, overeating. What is metabolism anyway? What are we really doing as far as like the women's health space? How can we encourage women to take ownership and calibrate themselves to themselves and not outside of themselves? I can relate in so many ways, coming out of the oral dysfunction world and the tongue tie world. And, we can say these things, and yet the doing of them somehow, goes missing. And I can look at a family and know that they don't move their bodies. I can look at a woman and know that her baby's not moving because she's not moving. It's just
it's
big
that
red
simple.
truck. It's just the thing,
Yes.
right? You know it.
Yes.
And they're like, well, I'm moving. I'm moving. I'm like, no, you're actually not moving together. You're actually not doing this as a unit, right? And so anyway, that's enough of that rant. But I wanted to give it back to Corey here and, kind of wrap us into kind of the crystallization of what we came to after our off-camera conversation. And how we want to like wrap that back to the dopamine conversation, because it's going to boil down to, do you want to take responsibility or not? At the end of the day,
Seriously, yeah.
that's what it is,
Literally.
right?
Well, Molly just brought up a really good point about, so if we're talking about the topic of weight with women, which has, for as long as I've been alive and way before then, this has been a, let's say, charged, perhaps, topic for women engaging in diet, nutrition, maybe watching our mothers engage in certain diets or their friends, and kind of the dopamine. Let's talk about dopamine in the sense of like rapid weight loss, for example, or, having the scale be a number, and then, us having these goals and then
Reward system.
reward system. And we're expanding the conversation from good, bad, right, wrong. We're just talking about how we use dopamine. And, yeah, did you have an experience with this back in the, because you grew up in the...
Yeah, I was born in the mid-'60s, grew up in the 70s, right? So that was your impressionable years, right? Like probably till about the late 70s. And remember my mom very clearly, the way she deprived herself and dieted and used appetite suppressants.
Interesting.
Dun, 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 coming back around.
Yeah, we're going to come back around with this.
Amphetamines were like over the counter then, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so you could do that kind of stuff. And then, some people might remember in their mother's or grandmother's refrigerator this box of aids. They were called aids, AYDS. And they were these they look like caramels. And they were an appetite suppressant. You're freaking out right now.
I'm like, have
caffeine,
I seen this before?
Yeah, caffeine and appetite suppressant. And they were chewy, so you felt like you were having a treat. So if you got hungry, you ate that.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And women would use smoking for
Oh my
similar
gosh,
reasons
yeah,
as well, right?
Totally, yeah. So smoking, and then also I can remember like my mom wanting to, like lose this weight, right? And at the same time, she was in school, working full time, planting and canning the garden. I mean, just way overdone.
Sure.
And then under fluorescent lights all day long,
Yes.
into the evening because she was in school, doing homework on the weekends, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's so much output. And we talked about this before, how just in the laws of thermodynamics, when you are have massive loss and not enough gains, then you create this expansion in your body physically. So it's where energy is neither destroyed or created. It's also where there's a loss of energy, there's an expansion.
Expanding.
Yeah. And so when I think about that, I think about my mom as the epitome of that. And then later on, after she graduated school, after we graduated high school, then she began to like come back down into her shape, because she's like 5'1", 5'2", maybe.
Yeah.
T90.
She found her homeostasis.
She found her zone.
In a way that her zone. I love that. I love that phrase, because this is what I witnessed in the space, and then when I worked with women one-on-one, what I was paying keen attention to was the swings.
Mm-hmm.
It's the really drastic, and also, you know, depending on where you're at developmentally, let's say you learn something for the first time. I know I talked about this back in the Freely Rooted podcast days, where a lot of people came into the like repeat world or metabolic health space world, and they're like, whoa, like this makes so much sense. And then depending on where you're at developmentally, when the brain receives new information, we put it in these categories of right, wrong, good, bad. And so what a lot of people, if that has been you listening, and it has been for many women who have been able to reflect back on their experience and fill in the blank with something that you have experienced, there's a tendency to like go like 100 miles an hour towards that thing because suddenly everything is good, bad, right, wrong, but it's so cerebral. And so my original work with women and what I've taught in my course is what would actually create the steps for sustainability. And that is self-knowing. It's being able to tune into biofeedback and understand how your body is responding to each step of the way. Your own N=1 experience is literally all that matters. And so I think that the metabolic niche, let's say, or understanding of the body and what it requires to create ATP and repeats work and the accumulation of his wisdom becoming more accessible and palatable coincided with social media and Instagram and reels and like material that was becoming, let's say, trendy, etc. We did a whole podcast episode on this on the Freely Rooted podcast, like basically breaking down like misconceptions of the pro-metabolic, what people called a diet, just because it became kind of like a thing on social media. And I also take ownership of my direct role in, of course, wanting to bring awareness, right? And so we can all look very objectively at the picture in that way and go, yeah, like this like kind of spread around really quickly. Like repeats information got out there very rapidly, very quickly. And so women, I really, really appreciated women in my course space that have reflected back on their journey in the beginning and going, yeah, okay, so if I came into this from energetic state of being underfed per your energy requirements, and then basically swinging the pendulum overboard without changing much about
To
the
full
lifestyle.
freedom.
Yeah, full freedom. Like,
I can eat
like
all the
balls
sugars.
to the
Yeah.
wall. Yeah, like
Dairy
yeah.
baby.
I call it like the Pinterest board version of the understanding of the bioenergetics and the nutrition. And so a lot of women, I've appreciated the humility and honesty of these women in my spaces going, all right, like this was me and I went 100 miles an hour and I gained weight during that process, because if you think about it, that is the actual definition of a underfed state going into a binge. And so what does the body do? It stores more fat. I have a whole module in this in my course. And that's the funny piece is these women will be like, you literally taught a whole lesson on exactly what happens if you go through a refeed period.
And I didn't even hear it.
And you didn't hear it because you want to go straight to, okay, what do you eat?
But this is the developmental space and age.
Right.
Yes.
And state.
And
just
there's grace,
give me the bullet
there's grace
points.
for that.
Give me the
Totally.
just tell me what to do.
Part of
Yes.
your learning.
And there's no learning about yourself in your feedback loop.
Exactly.
Totally.
And I think we talked about this literally in the kitchen sessions of the last episode, the need to do it right.
Yeah.
And that archetype of like, I don't want to do it wrong. I just want to do it right. And so if you stay in that mindset, something that I have witnessed as well is, let's say a woman does wake up and she's like, you know what, I've actually been in a refeed period and not actually a learning my metabolism period, in which case there's this whole spiral of shame and blame. And what Molly was bringing up earlier before we started recording is she was saying that in the category of if anybody starts to gain weight, also as a tendency, depending on where you're at developmentally, is we immediately look for where we can place ourselves in the victim triangle. So who can I blame for this thing that is happening to me that I have no part in? And who can I punish, let's say, and finger point. And so that's still looking outside of yourself. It's still looking on the victim triangle. And what would it require? This is what this whole conversation is going to be. what would it require to take self-responsibility in the process of self-knowing?
Yeah, I mean, I've just walked that path.
Totally.
Like in the last, it'll be October will be a year. So we're coming up on, 11 months, where I made that shift and put all of my factors together, where I live, my light diet, how much I was sitting. Jack Cruz is so beautifully states, he's like, we can't blame food for what light, doesn't
real.
have an opportunity to create,
For real.
literally. And so I looked at that. I looked at how much I was sitting, and also my type, right?
How you utilize energy,
my
how
blueprint, all of that,
interact,
my lineage, all of that, haplotype, and really dialed in. I used Courtney Hunt's stuff, and I've done her fasting class multiple times. I've done her ketosis class multiple times, and the reason I did that is because I did not want to get into a space where I was, in a class and needed specific, like, nuanced information so I could pivot and turn and navigate in the way that I'm supposed to do that.
Totally.
Because I didn't want to, just do keto. I learned the process of ketosis. I wanted to basically learn hunt, fast, feast, fix. And that's what I've done. It's been potent because of my medical history, the ability to heal my nervous system. Now I'm not talking about trauma here, folks. I'm talking about, like toxicity stuff, right? To be able to heal that and also own all the other parts that go with it, my immobility, my lack of cardio, my lack of strength training, all of that, and dial it all in and experience, dropping 30 pounds, and also all of the benefits that go with that. And also regulating my blood glucose, producing ketones now, able to swing back and forth between metabolizing carbs more efficiently and not putting on the excess. And then also able to consume fat and produce ketones. It's been massive for me.
Well, you were saying the other day, just the impact that it's had on your outlook, even
Huge.
of what you're investing, what your investments are in your life. And I think this is huge for women to hear.
Yeah, so the map over to that is, in my age, looking down the tunnel of retirement, if you want to call it that. In the next, like, these are my years where I put things together to be able to go into my sunset years, right? Financially, especially. And I'm doing that part. And then the other part was I wanted other assets. I wanted muscle, I wanted bone, and mitochondria, because that's my longevity plan. And I realized I didn't have that. I knew last summer when I went to Europe, and even though I hiked almost 200 miles in Europe, it was really great. I came back and I'm like, oh, there's so much more here.
Yes. Literally just, I know I'm completely interrupting.
That's
right
okay.
now,
Go ahead.
I'm going to bounce it back. But just this sheer realization of how much your body was capable of and how much more you could have been moving.
I blew myself out of the water. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more. And then I bought a vest, and then I, mapped out my trails. I, got an app. I did all kinds of stuff. And then I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much more sense doing it all together for me in the way that I'm here to do it. It was everything. And so people have commented, what's going on with Michelle? What's the glow up? What's the, and I'm like, this is what it is. It's bone, it's mitochondria, it's muscle, it's happiness, it's my brain feels better.
Yeah.
It's the inflammation's under control.
Totally.
Absolutely.
And in every single age and stage for a woman's life, those are your assets.
Yes.
Your mitochondria, if you think
Right.
about your in your pre-fertility ages, then you're in your, your pregnancy stages, and then you're post-menopausal or you're in menopause, your mitochondria are going to give your body the signal and energy that it requires, period.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, go ahead.
That's why I love you started your sharing your process by going, was I willing to take self-responsibility and basically do a self-audit of my life and look at how I was moving and looking at how I was responding to certain foods and how I was eating and just like literally you zoomed way out and you were able to audit your whole life, and then you had an experience and your experience was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to integrate this into my life now. And that is why I love the conversation of when women have this as like a pain point, let's say, of I'd like to lose weight. Maybe I gain weight from this and this and this. This whole conversation is what is it going to require for you to look deep within yourself at a couple things. One, the element of Michelle was just sharing that your outer body is a direct reflection of how you see yourself. Curious if you want to elaborate on that before I go to point 2.
Yeah, I feel like the way that we're shaped and the way that we look is the manifestation of how we see ourselves. And I realized I was not a match. And that needed some adjustment. And I feel like I'm more aligned in that now than I've probably ever been in my entire life. And it feels really, really good. You know, the interesting thing about that is when I look over my life going into motherhood, mitochondria on point, reproducing, birthing, keeping up with the family and the kids and all that. And then as I got toward 40, early 40s, that began to tank. That was also at the end of my trad wife era.
Wow.
Trad wife 1.5.
Yep.
You know,
She went all in before
I went
it was
all
cool.
in. I did the whole kind, everything. And that is when my health took a massive downturn.
And you were talking about this, like being inside. You were inside.
Yes.
You were
I was working.
feeding multiple children. You weren't moving your body for yourself.
Nope.
You weren't getting
Wasn't
morning
doing anything
sunlight.
for myself.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I was doing everything, but I wasn't doing things for
you,
me.
For you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so big because we have this like recent re-evolution of what it means to be a trad wife. And you're saying you lived this back in the 90s, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, what did your days look like at that point? It was a lot of like inside time, like you said, not moving.
Well, really quick too. It is like, I feel like it's the perception of movement because you're busy.
Oh,
Yep.
busy.
Like
yeah.
it's that busy feel.
Walking all
You're
day
always
long.
I'm like, you're
moving.
making the tortillas, you're making the sourdough, you're doing 7 things. Somebody needs a
that.
homeschool lesson, like
Yeah.
yada, da, 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 and you're doing it all in between. But then you're like, wait, have I actually like dynamically moved my body?
Yeah.
No. You've
Or is it
squatted down to get the canning jar out of the whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and you know,
I'm like, I can picture this in the cellar, you know,
the
the
thing
thing in
about it
Kansas.
is when my children were younger, like, and I think I've mentioned this before, you know, I was the mom. I would sit on the floor with my kids. I would get up out of the floor unassisted without using my hands with 2 children.
Yeah.
No problem. Like I could move that way. And that's how I went into it. And then the more traditional I got, the less I did that.
Wow.
It wasn't okay to move that way.
Wow.
There was a perception that went with it. And also because of the dresses and the other stuff that went with that trad wifey kind of vibe.
And I hope you guys feel the differentiation between like even our style. We're sitting here on the podcast, and Molly loves.
I love that
flowy dresses.
look.
And
Yeah,
it's a match for her. And the self concept is the key here that we're talking about. Like, is the flowy dress a match for you, or is it not? And you are trying to be somebody that you're not.
Yep.
And you're actually, let's say, downgrading in the way that you're showing up in the world because you're trying to be somebody else that is not actually like a
It's
match
that
for who you are.
lack of inner knowing, lack of like understanding what's happening in your own system, and then the response based on what you're doing.
Exactly.
That
There was a
calibration.
moment, I'll tell this in the kitchen sessions today, but there was a moment where that broke for me. And I just literally in an afternoon just uprighted my whole life.
Wow.
And it was following, I think, my second miscarriage, which was really weird. But that whole piece right there with the 3 miscarriages, well, there was a miscarriage, birth, miscarriage, and then almost died on the last one. And then coming out of that, it was like, oh, I'm going to die if I don't actually turn this around. And when you have wake-up calls like that, I mean, yeah, I was drama queen with it a little bit maybe. And yet that was the way that I was doing things at the time. I no longer have to do it that way. And the radical transformation, the radical responsibility went hard with me for certain periods of my life. Now I can do that differently. And if you don't listen to those wake-up calls, it's just information, right? But we're so quick, our brains are so quick to make it good, bad, right, or wrong, mostly for, quote, protection. And if we don't actually take it in as information, and then that's part of the feedback loop, right? We teach this in the vessel. We talk about this in Rooted Families. You talk about this in Freely Rooted, right? Where this kind of intimate willingness to, above all else, build your assets, your own personal assets. It doesn't do to not do when you're placing someone else above you.
Yes.
It doesn't.
Totally.
It just doesn't work out well at all.
So good. So the whole self-concept thing, it's just such a really beautiful illustration. Like you can see it in who am I? Literally, who am I? And then that being reflected in the outer world of it, like even the shape of your body, because for multiple reasons, it could be an energetic thing. And two, you're creating the structure and the habits, the biohabits in your day, in your week, in your month, in your years that reflects who you know you are. And coming into this third experience, giving birth, I knew even before I gave birth, like what that was going to look like as far as my postpartum season. When I was going to start working out again, what workouts were going to look like. And then I turned that into my Radiant Summer Challenge, which I know a lot of you guys have been engaging with, which we'll talk about the movement piece in a second. And it was something that was predetermined because it came from the inside of who I knew I was and how I wanted to show up. And so I built that out. And that is such a practical example in it comes down to your habits too. It's just like, it's an extension of who you are. And then you are shaped by that, which leads me to my second point about, I mean, we've been talking about this for 3 seasons. Yeah, we're in their 3rd season now. Since season 1, that humans are shaped by their environment. And Molly was talking about, did you want to share the example with your husband, with Sam?
Oh yeah, so he's been getting into Muay Thai recently, and it's been really fun and exciting for him and activating for him on multiple levels. And something that people have been commenting on are different body parts of his, in a nice way, and being like, wow, whoa, oh, doing all that. And he's like, yeah, I feel really good. It's this, I am strong now. I am whatever. And he was strong before. So it's not that he wasn't. But when we met, he was actually, I would say, the diameter like of his biceps or his thighs or whatever. He was actually a lot wider and bigger when we met. And we were mapping over that season and then this season when he's actually moving his body. And if you know anything about, I guess, Muay Thai, it's very primal and it's upright, and it's actually very like Bowie posture where you have to kick and you have to engage in this like really open dynamic way, versus boxing's a little bit more like collapsed and tucked. Yeah. And he was talking about the way that he's moving his body primally in relationship to his like bodybuilding days. It wasn't necessarily full on bodybuilding like what you've talked about before, but he was in the gym under fluorescent lighting at Planet Fitness doing the swole thing, whatever this is. And he was bigger, quote unquote bigger. But his words are that he was looking inflamed, and now he looks like he's holding light.
Wow.
Because he also had that skin situation going on too, which is better now.
Yes. Yeah. It's completely resolved. Yeah. We haven't seen any of that kind of come back, but he's lived the bottom of the pyramid for at least the last 2 years. And,
which is, as a sidebar, every time we talk about resourcing, we're talking about the bottom of the pyramid. I know you guys usually have follow-up questions about that. So I just wanted to put that in there. Yeah.
Bottom of the pyramid of stability, that's in Rooted Families, that's in the vessel, that's in generative biohabits that we have too. So living the bottom of the pyramid and then having this, I'm not as big, but I feel better and I'm more mobile and I'm more functional, and people are commenting more on my body now than I've ever been commented on in my life. And so I was like, that's a cool example of function.
Well, also for women though, the converse is true for women. It's like people think that for women it's about being smaller, but I keep going back to, it's about being proportionate.
Yep.
And in your zone. Totally.
Yeah.
And I feel like the inflamed piece is a great differentiation as well, with just like literally low charge, low resourcing,
Totally.
something we see all the time is women being like, I feel inflamed, or men being like, I feel inflamed. And we're like, yeah, your charge is not on. Like you can literally see in the body that they need more resourcing, not less, not stripped down, not let's starve ourselves, you know?
Right.
And that's an interesting parallel as well. And that was a segue into this idea of being shaped by our environment and how those go together with the first point that we were talking about with who are you as an inner concept, and then how that's reflected in the outer body. And then also what you create in your environment is going to literally shape your body. And so go ahead.
The thing that I think is interesting about this, because my theory is sort of like women now we don't have these concepts, these self-concepts given to us quite as much. There's a million things to choose from, and the internet's going to give you your self-concept if you don't choose it yourself. And primally or in the village setting, you would have had that concept given to you. You would have been intact and in rapport with your set community, your distance community, who's literally around you and surrounding you. And you would have had a body that represented its function.
Yes.
So the movement function, the function in the village, the function in the tribe, you would have had a purpose and a place, and a lot of that would have been given to you. But now we are in this modern day industrialist era where you could literally be anything you want.
Yep.
And most people aren't moving their bodies.
Yep.
So then how does the body shape? The body shapes from the mental, right? So we've like come all the way up into this self-concept, this energetic, emotional piece and place. And so the body's going to shape what you hold in mind.
Literally. So every time I hear, this, let's say, element of, well, I gain weight because of this, or I gain weight because of the repeat diet, I'm like, literally, what is it going to take to bring that all the way in on the inside and realize that it's literally a picture of you. It's a picture of how you are showing up in the world, and then what you're engaging with to then go to the next thing and point the finger, etc. What were you going to say?
I was just stretching.
I think the biggest place that I see this is in postpartum. Like I gained weight, or I can't lose my baby weight. And I think a lot of women will get caught up in, and we've talked about this in multiple episodes, like whatever the dynamics are with the birth. But if you get stuck there and you get stuck in that drama triangle or in that loop, that will just continue to perpetuate in the postpartum period. And then the dopamine addiction, like you literally need to overfeed yourself to suppress whatever cortisol, whatever feelings are coming up from that.
Literally. And I think this is where I hear the phrase stubborn weight the most. And I was just reflecting on the word stubborn, of like, if somebody's like, I've got this stubborn baby weight that won't come off.
What are you stubborn about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's what I go to. It's like,
mirror.
okay, so you're stubborn. I get it. What are you stubborn about?
And like, what are you choosing to be stuck in? Basically?
Yeah, I see the mule like sitting down on
Yes.
the haunches.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, that's good.
Like
That's
halting
stubborn to me.
all things.
Yeah.
So halting.
You just sat down right there in the middle of it, and you're like, no, I'm not doing it.
Is that a 5-year-old, 4-year-old,
I'm sorry,
3-year-old?
but yeah,
Yep.
sorry, not sorry. But when I hear stubborn, I'm like, okay, sis, sit there,
Completely. That's only going to go one way.
Or choose to get up and go take a precise action and then evaluate the efficacy of the action that you just took. I don't know. I'm just saying. Maybe that's maybe that's a way you could do it too.
Well, I think that there also a part that comes into this is that like softness. We were talking about this earlier. That softness, this feminine, this I'm gonna like relax into postpartum. I'm using postpartum as an example just because it's relevant for my field, but I'm gonna relax into this and I'm gonna really step into my feminine. I'm gonna be softer and fluffier and curvier and all of these things. And where does that lead you?
Yep. What is the long term? It's like we've talked about this, I think, in the first episode, the whole idea of growth trajectory of like, where is that going?
Right.
And like we can see all the time. It's pretty simple to see in our own lives and in others where certain choices were like, okay, like we know where that's headed. So at this point, you either need to change something now or take ownership of where it's headed down the road and be able to track it back of like, oh, these are the habits that led to this.
And I think too, one dynamic that feels maybe counterintuitive to people is that maybe something that goes with that is like the slow life or like the rested life.
With the revamping of
The trad wife
trad
stuff.
wife, or like being in our soft feminine, slow maxing.
That's how I've heard it.
There's several dynamics that all went together. And I think something that automatically was a dynamic in the mix unconsciously was that I'm literally just going to use this as my excuse or as my reason to basically just kind of like lay around the house.
You resting more doesn't make you feel better or create more energy. And I think that's counterintuitive because someone's like, I'm tired, I'm going to lay down. What if you, because you're in this slow, like, what if you started moving your body slowly? What if you started incorporating sun slowly? Like, you can do the things that bring your physical and chemical and energetic body energy, and you can still do it slowly.
Completely.
And softly.
And I think that we had this conversation with a group of women recently where my relationship to rest used to be like power through and really self-abandon, where my signals were going no, yes. That's a process of not self-knowing, of not knowing myself, is not being able to tune into my edges and my navigation system, which is like, no, not this thing. Yes, this thing. And so what I would do is I would go, and then I would crash. And so I think rest to a lot of people meant lay down and scroll on my phone and be able to receive dopamine that way, which is, once again, like if you guys listened to the last episode that we did, that is something that our bodies innately were designed to receive and feel great. And there was an element of what you're creating to receive that reward, so to speak, like a built-in reward system. And so if we have a built-in reward system with inactivity, that is a whole dang loop under the guise of being soft or slow. Yeah. So define these words, right?
Totally.
Define your words on what you're using,
and take an honest audit.
I love being slow. I love everybody loves a slow life.
You know, it's interesting. One of the things that you brought to us in like the power to change, the very first thing that we did was go slow to go fast.
Right.
How much can you slow this internal process down? But you're not talking about lay down. You're talking about change, literally orient your life, and you can slow something down so much that it actually collapses and speeds it up.
Yep.
Whole different concept.
Yeah. And people do think that means, oh, well, like lay down, and it doesn't. It's not that. And that whole thing fits in really well with the whole trad wife conversation, and basically like not taking on any of the co-created responsibility in the union. And I'm like, oh, Houston, we have a problem because both lanes are not covered right now. And also go back to, there's one coach online, I won't say her name, but she talks about the concept of the feminine range, which I absolutely love. And she talks about the range of femininity, and there might be a time and a space for showing up very languish-like and walking slowly and all that. And then some of us are gonna, we will wear that one out really quick. And then we've got to come over here and bust it.
Yeah.
You know?
Completely.
And so, I know Kyle and I were talking about this reel recently, and I can't find it. I'll have to find it. But how if you see women over 50 in your neighborhood wearing weighted vests and walking, your property value just went up because they're the ones out there like making it happen, right?
For sure.
And that's me every morning at 5:30 a.m., you know, doing my thing. And that is also within feminine range.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you guys, like, I hope this landed for you guys, what she was saying about the co-creational aspect of the union. So picture, and we talked about this in the Rooted Families webinar, when she was talking about the soft feminine, she's like, this language is, I just want to lean into my femininity and be in my feminine. And she's like, that's you wanting to literally ask your husband to pick you up. Like, just drape over your husband and ask him to pick you up, versus both of you guys are taking ownership for your co-creational dynamic relationship and values that you bring to the table. This conversation goes into martyrdom.
Yeah.
Wives that are and I've absolutely had seasons like this. Molly has had seasons like this.
Totally.
Michelle,
Me too. Yeah.
it's the aspect of like, well, I'm just gonna like take
I'm gonna be inactive.
inactive.
I'm gonna let you take it, babe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you do that, babe.
But that language around that might be, oh, I'm going to step more into my feminine. It's really not.
Yeah. Or that's what it was for me. It was like, let me take over all of these roles and I'll do extra inside. Just for us, for everybody here. Let me do extra inside.
Wow.
And our dynamic, it didn't work.
No.
And with the martyrdom piece, would you say that another objection leading the witness? Would you say that? Would you say that?
I'll allow it.
Judge Judy, it is the judge over here.
Proceed.
We love a good
Proceed.
courtroom. Would you say that choosing a position of martyrdom, because you guys might hear this and be like, wait, but that actually does work for me or like maybe that is a part of your dynamic. What we're talking about is the martyrdom piece. And would you say that that is actually like a predetermined outcome waiting to happen where then you can blame the husband when he screws up or messes up or whatever? And all ownership is on the husband because you're taking a backseat and you're like, you figure it out, you know?
I mean, if it's not truly authentic, then 100%.
Yeah.
Then you're giving yourself, you're just on that triangle. You're like, ooh, I'm going to be the savior. He's going to be the savior right now. I'm just going to be the one, or you're just going to spin it.
And then the other part of that is also with the putting on of the weight.
Totally. The dynamic of where you're holding the weight. I'm pointing literally to my belly because you talk about a lack of boundaries or martyrdom and in many different body maps throughout all ranges of practitioners. We'll talk about this. A lack of boundaries and a lack of knowing your own boundaries will create that fat pad around the midsection, or we call it like the cortisol fat pad.
Now that brings up a really good segue into boundaries. I consider boundaries like as far as maintaining boundaries, like the low expression. I love to talk about standards.
Yep, I love
and
that flip.
the thing about boundaries is I also look at that as knowing your own boundaries or your own edges and where you begin and end in the world. Because a lot of people will talk about being too much or not enough. Yeah. I think it's possible, even on a level of like physics, it's impossible to be too much. People talk about, oh, I got in trouble for being too much. No, you didn't. You got in trouble for actually trying to be yourself and somebody else couldn't handle it. That's what happened. It was a mismatch for who you were with. Because that happened to me all the time. You know, it's like, oh, we don't know how to help her be herself, so we're going to put the quietus on that. And then also physically being more than your bones can handle is also, in a sense, impossible. And it's also a way of diminishing who you are.
Hiding.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff wrapped up in there.
Yep.
You know, the physical aspect of not being able to be too much, but then also covering yourself up to be less. I mean, unpack that for me. It's a mind bend.
It is.
So good.
It's a mind bend.
And then tracking over to different areas of the body, another very common one that I see is like the sometimes back, but it's like the arm and like anything in this region, which I always think to, where are you carrying a load that is perhaps it's like an overextension of load, which could come back to boundaries and standards of what would it look like for you to bring in the support that you need or acquire the resourcing in your body to meet what you need to create as an output in the world.
Totally. And in chiropractic, one of my mentors, please nobody take offense to this, but he would call it the yak hump.
What is it?
The
Totally.
yak hump.
Hump. Yak hump. Oh, like the animal. The animal.
Because that's where they literally carry their water.
Oh,
their water weight.
Yes.
And he would say it's a thyroid thing.
Wow.
Either it's an imbalance on either side.
Wow.
And so exactly what you're talking about.
Completely.
Well, and thyroid is light.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's where it begins.
There you go back to light. And the other thing that's interesting about the light piece and the body is, and everybody knows this about me, it's like if you're going to work with me, then the requirement is nude sunbathing.
Yep.
End of story, all day long.
Yep.
Don't give me that excuse.
Don't give me that excuse. You figure it out. And what women report back in their bodies and noticing their bodies is increased maturity.
Mhm.
They look more developed to themselves. And so I'm at, this concept of light in the eyes on the body is also a way to like gauge who I am in the world and also bring all those pieces together with energy utilization related to development in the physical and also related to development in the if you want to call it the psyche or the aspects of growth and development.
It's
maturity.
Yes, maturity.
It's a defining element.
Yes.
And so, as your cells wrap more light and then literally your body communicates via light, all of those processes kind of come into one correlative place in stage.
It crystallizes, condenses, it crystallizes, it the energy becomes to where you can actually produce who you are in the world. It's like putting the plant, in the correct environment. It starts to grow.
Completely.
Well, I love this conversation about light specifically because we were discussing earlier just one of Jack Cruz's recent posts on the GLP-1s and Ozempic and light essentially and how it's going to alter the use of those class of medicines is going to alter your ability to store and utilize the light that is available to us as a human. And we were talking about this in relationship to the psyche and the emotional pieces and why do you want to be underweight or why do you want to lose your weight? And there's that whole component to it, but there's also a brain element. There's you're wasting away of all of the tissues because it's that class of drugs. So I don't think that I don't think we've seen the full unload of what's going to happen with the use of that or the popularity in the use.
Right.
But so if we're wrapping it back into dopamine and light, as that drug interacts with your system, it does reduce your satiety. It increases your satiety. So it's going to reduce your overeating, right? So it's going to reduce your pleasure seeking element of overeating, like we were talking about earlier with the metabolics.
They call it food noise. It cuts out the food noise. And I'm like, okay, well, that's all the signals that you need to be able to know what to nourish yourself
right.
with.
So then what about the signals that actually tell your body, not the overeating, not the pleasure part, but the actual nutrients and requirements for the meat suit
and we've
to
already
function.
seen like the reports coming in now of like the bone problems, also women who have atrophied vulvas, like atrophying in the skin, different areas that are fat dependent.
Wow.
Right.
They're atrophying.
Right.
Because it cannot, so from what I'm understanding, just like in the bodybuilding conversation 10 years ago or so, people were like, can I spot fat reduce? And everyone's like, no. So in the same way, you're saying that it takes fat from places that actually need fat.
Oh, totally.
Wow.
Yeah. And we know that all of our hormones are serine ring based, cholesterol based.
Yes, exactly.
And that's one of the reasons I really respect Courtney Hunt too. She's like, if you're vegan, I can't help you. How many times have I said that in my work, with airway people? I'm like, if you're vegan, I can't help you.
Well, then this also comes back to the correct storage of fat, right? So we're talking about like subcutaneous versus visceral and like being overweight. I feel like there's a big difference there. And we also talk about light interacting with the fat in our bodies and literally eating fatty foods to be able to hold and store more light.
Yeah,
exactly.
For energy production.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think just, unpacking a little bit maybe about what fat is too would be helpful.
Fat is so important. And what's interesting is as a menopausal woman, I was not aware, considering, cognizant of the impact of not getting enough fat for myself. And then, of course, in ketosis, in eating certain ratios of protein to fat and the carbs, macros, different macro ratios, getting more fat has been monumental for me in so many ways. I know it has to do with the hormone piece. Of course, also, and I think I've told this story before, is if you've had your gallbladder removed, you've got to have some type of ox bile, bile salt, something, some way to digest that fat and make it more utilizable and accessible. I can't tell you how many women have come to me and they're like, oh, it feels hormonal. And I'm like, have you had your gallbladder out? And they're like, well, yes. And I'm like, quadruple what you're taking for ox bile because you can't break down the fat that you're consuming. Totally. And they're like, oh, and in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the lights come back on.
Wow.
It's just a whole thing. You got to watch that kind of stuff.
Wow.
But the whole energy fat relationship for me has been monumental in being able to create the ATP and the power to do all of the rucking and all of the strength and all of the things that I've wanted to do.
And this is a sidebar a little bit, but you guys have talked about this in Rooted Families many times, like in many webinars. But giving your kids enough fat to be able to run the energies. Yeah, run the energy that it needs to in the winter specifically.
Yep.
To store the light that they built up throughout the summer.
Right.
And then the small amount that they're getting in the winter.
Yep.
Sometimes it's astounding how much more they may need to actually do that efficiently.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And especially if you think about how active children are and mothers too, but like when we go back to the movement piece, how active, I mean, if anybody's got a 2-year-old right now, like, they're just going for it.
Exactly.
All day, every day.
I think it's so interesting too, like I've said before, from an intuitive standpoint, I mean, my kids had access to butter, cream, all of those things. And whenever we ate, anything, like if I cooked a gingerbread or whatever, there was always plenty of butter to go with that. You did not do it. And that was so Weston A. Price, right? It's like you didn't do anything without butter. You didn't do anything without a fat, vehicle. It just went together.
Literally a vehicle.
Yeah. Kyle walked in this morning to set up and I've made cookies, peanut butter, macadamia nuts, like fat bomb, a cookie,
Fat bomb cookie.
Would you like a cookie and a Coke Zero?
He loves going to Michelle's house.
Yeah.
Well, with the movement piece, this is where I know that all three of us have our own like movement practice that is absolutely vital and foundational for us. And I have always enjoyed working with women on the movement piece for years now with a specific style of strength training. And one of the principles, which I did not realize why I was so drawn to it at the time, all that I know is that I was innately like, this makes sense to me. This is what I want. This is what, and also just experimenting, my experience with it was that it produced the best results for me, and then also with my clients, and then also with my course community. And so the principle that I love to use is something it's called progressive overload, which is where you introduce a weightlifting program. So I write these programs, or I teach people how to write these programs in my Freely Rooted course. And then over a 4 to 6 to 8 week period, in Radiant Summer, it's actually just been 4 to 5 weeks, women are progressively overloading. They're taking the same workout and then they're just adding slow incremental pieces to those workouts and repeating them week by week before we change the workouts out. So what I have noticed and just now put together in the last year or two, but especially in the experiences that these women are having, is they're like, I feel so much more capable, even just energetically, with how I show up in the world. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the principle of progressive overload is literally telling your body you can increase your capacity, and it's done so in a very gentle and sustainable way. And so it's literally imprinting on the physical field for our psyche to learn, because it all goes together. It all, one input is going to impact the other input, meaning the body, mind, and spirit. So the fact that the progressive overload these women are engaging with, maybe they've done some sort of weightlifting in the past, but it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of let's just throw some weights around kind of thing. Yeah, random. Bodybuilding world used to call that muscle confusion, and the idea that if you confuse the body, then the body will adapt better. But what we have from the white paper is that progressive overload is actually what allows the body to actually adapt and create the most muscle protein synthesis. And so I find it fascinating to implement a movement practice, whatever it looks like. I'm talking about weightlifting here. Yeah. With rucking, you've added weights to progressively to the weight vest, and everybody across the board knows that this is the let's say, most optimal way of burning fat as well, is this like slow, gentle progression into your regimen. But I find it so interesting when working with the movement piece, with this being such an undervalued and overlooked principle in people's, number one, whether their outcome is weight loss or just health and vitality in general, how movement is so disengaged.
Yeah.
And yet that is, like, in my opinion, one of the easiest ways to teach your body the element of capacity and vitality to get into a state of healthy metabolics. And then number three, what is my third?
Well, I was going to say,
I could take that too.
I was going to say a third one I automatically thought of was that is creating a reward system.
Yep.
So that feeds right into the dopamine reward system.
That.
The other part that I was thinking of was, and for me, it's intensity and duration, right? So those two things together progressively going up. And like I think I alluded to earlier, I took last week off. I really didn't take the week off, but what I did was my oldest son came out and we went and did on these really intense hikes. And also what I could feel was missing for me was the neuroplastic piece. So repetitive motion, even with progressive overload, I needed confusion as far as like footwork and neuroplasticity goes. I needed like movement challenge that wasn't repetitive, consistent, like walking movement, right? So we're in a stream and he's going, just jump. And I'm like, oh, this is actually the excitement, that I wanted.
Yes.
And the fact that I'm going to jump to this other rock and make it, and then I'm going to jump across a river the whole way and not stop, whether that rock behind me goes or not, right? And I'm going to do it. And so creating all of this reward pathway just from the accomplishment of doing something that was outside of my norm was massive. By Wednesday, I'm happy.
Wow.
It took 3 days, but I got there. It took me 3 days to get happy, but that gave me happy.
Well, the accomplishment piece I think is so huge, because if you're listening, because this is what I've seen as pretty much the standard in these women who've had this experience in the Radiant Summer Challenge. And I keep referencing that just because it's this whole container of women who are like, it's just such a great case study. And what is so interesting is what comes up in the mindset. So let's say you have a pattern or a collapse kind of pattern, a loop where you're like, I'm this, I'm that, this isn't getting better. My kids can't breathe. Like, just like the focus on the negative. And when you are progressively overloading and you're accomplishing things, and I'm having women write down on a piece of paper, like exactly how they are actually moving towards something progressively towards a goal, you literally cannot have both at the same time. It rewires how you show up in the world, and you become acutely aware of, I've been such a victim in every single state of my life. Like it's like exposing it basically, because those two, they cross each other out in a way. And so by just implementing a movement practice where you are actually like using your body, I just think it's so interesting what opportunity is there for us in the psych to rewire alongside it.
Something you've also touched on before is that like bringing in that frame or discipline, or maybe even you could call it like the masculine element of doing something over time in a certain way, that repetitive piece. And what we've also seen is multiple women have engaged with us in different spaces and ask us, like, one of the questions that always pings in my mind is, how do you guys get your booties to look like they do when you're only doing bow? And I'm like,
we're not only doing bow.
Yeah. We ain't only doing bow. And we're moving in dynamic ways. We're jumping on rocks. We're in nature. We're doing these things. And I had a experience recently in the movement practice that I also engage with. They have an app, for the studio has an app, and it uploads like how many classes you've done. So the last 2.5 years, I've never looked at it. And then I hit a number, I hit like 250 classes, and they give you this little reward thing. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was like, oh, on the app, it shows you how many classes you've done. And I was like, this is why I have a booty, because I have progressively, like, it's not just, I woke up and I was like, oh, like, look at this. It's booty pop. It is a over time, consistent, somewhat consistent, right? Progressively getting stronger, better at this movement practice, and then engaging in other neuroplastic ways.
I'm laughing because we were just in Hana.
Yeah.
And Molly's taking pictures of me doing stuff. And you can see my little tan line underneath my glutes. You
Your
can
butt's
see
changing.
it.
Yeah.
That means the butt's lifting and changing,
Yep.
right? Because that's the only tan line I have is that two little smiley faces right under the booty
going up.
cheeks. Yeah. And it's going up.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my God, there's my little,
Yep.
you know, my little eyelid.
Love.
My little closed eye.
The other
we were
thing-
laughing about it.
The other thing I think that's really interesting that you brought up, though, is that neuroplastic piece of jumping or being, if you aren't engaged, nature does that naturally.
Naturally.
Nature will give you these dynamic neuroplastic
Opportunities.
opportunities to move your body.
Yeah.
And if you aren't in nature, it is going to be very dimensional here, front, back, linear.
Right.
You have to look for those sporadic, non-linear motions. That's why we love bow. That's why we love incorporating bow as well.
That's why we love hiking too. I mean,
Yeah.
we were all over it. We were up some serious like boulders and doing some very dynamic stuff on our last hike. And that to me is just as nourishing as
Totally.
the linear, repetitive
Yeah.
things.
Exactly. Well, and then that brings up such a good point in self-concept, creating your life based off of who you are, because I already know some of you guys listening are going to be like, well, you guys live in this like accessible nature. This is who we've chosen to be. This is the life that we've created.
Let
and
me
this
tell
is-
you about the local culture here. People stay inside.
Yep.
They do the same things that you
same
do in the
thing.
Midwest
Yep.
here on an island.
Guarantee if you live in the Midwest and you've got a Y in your town, it probably has a climbing wall.
Yeah.
Have you ever used it? I'm just saying.
Yeah, you will find what you need
Yes.
if that is a match for your desires. This is the same conversation as birth. It's the same conversation we've been
saw-
having
Every
the past 2
time,
seasons.
all the time.
You will
every
find what you
day.
need. Everything that you need is actually right there available. It's just a matter of reorienting. And sometimes that might be a wake up call to, actually who I am is a complete mismatch for the environment that I'm living in.
Totally.
Maybe that means moving. I don't know. That's up to you guys.
I don't know. I don't have your answer.
I
Okay.
don't know. We don't have your answers. But the other thing is, if you're not trying to source that, say trying loosely, but if you're not attempting
Yep.
to find that where you are and plug yourself in there,
Yes.
moving may not, probably not,
Literally.
not
If
going to help you.
you stay in your inactivity loop,
Yep.
moving,
You'll stay there.
Yeah,
Ain't
moving,
gonna- ain't gonna
moving
change
it,
a
going, doing
thing.
You'll live the same exact lifestyle and
You'll
then
just
wonder
you'll
what's
play it
wrong.
out
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's when the question for yourself that could be really helpful is, what are my secondary gains for staying in the same lifestyle? If I'm realizing, oh yeah, I just took a big self audit and turns out here's what I learned about myself. And then you can evaluate secondary gains. And you probably know what secondary gains is if you guys have been listening to the podcast. And
Do you want to go into it?
Just the thing you get from the not. So you get something from the negative. You get something from
Staying where you are.
staying where you are or not making the change or whatever.
people get all riled up about
Me too. Oh my.
they're like, no. And
Not
you're like, yes.
me. I'm like,
yes.
I'm not
Yeah,
benefiting. I'm not
you.
benefiting from this
I'm
in
not
any
getting
way.
from that
I
in
promise.
any way. I'm like, yes, you are.
Secondary gains to weight gain is
Yeah.
also a very interesting topic. And do you have anything to share on that? As far as what might my secondary gains be from holding on to this weight or having stubborn weight or having this story related to this weight that I carry? Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think we were kind of touching on like the areas of the body could be a really nice place for self-assessment. And then protection, right? The hiding that you were alluding to earlier. We see a lot of those as secondary gains. And then there's also marriage dynamics.
Yep.
We like to talk about those and whatever's happening in your dynamic with the partner of your choice. Weight can be a really nice indicator and window into how you may want to protect yourself, how you may want to perpetuate a story, how you may want to test your partner. Are they still going to love me if I gain a lot of weight or whatever the like deeper emotional roots are? I think weight gain or stubborn weight, being overweight out of your BMI zone, I think that's a really good revealer.
Yeah. And especially, this actually ties back into our previous episode where we talked about the pornography piece and dopamine. and then how that might be showing up in the mirroring dynamic of the woman. And it's just something I've seen a lot is the weight gain or the weight story, and that being a secondary gain piece in that is the continuation of the story of he doesn't find me attractive anyways,
Right.
and then he's going to continue this thing. And so that's something to maybe consider.
Yeah. Lots of questions, I would say, lots of self-inquiry, and then getting clear on what do you want?
Yeah, I
Like,
think
how
at
do
the
you
end
want
of
to
the
live?
day, if you cannot do it for yourself, then any other reason just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Not
Yes.
sustainable.
It's just, it doesn't matter.
That's a great point in thinking, you know, let's say somebody is listening to this episode and they're like, okay, like first off, there are so many prompts that just within the episode are provided. And then also your steps moving forward are based on the self-assessment of who am I? So it like I could go, okay, if you're a freely rooted student, go back through my course and go to it literally does not matter what I say. It's a matter of what were you saying in the last episode? It's like it's about what you do. It's about whatever action is most congruent with who you are choosing to be. And then is that continuing a story? Is that actually taking steps that are correct for you? And just getting I think the theme of the day is having a nice self-audit of what your life looks like and then how you want to construct your life to look, not based off of this idea of what it looks like, but coming from the inside first and then coming out, because that's how everything works.
The N equals one. You are the one in your research, in your experiment. And the good news about that research is that you can include all of the variables that you want to. We're not getting rid of variables to find information that you're going to share with anybody else. This is your experiment. And just because you find a how to do something, it doesn't mean it's anybody else's how. And your way is the most important thing. And if you're not actually in love with that, then I question what you really do love in this world. If you're not in love with your own way and being who you are in the world, I got other questions for you. And I think this whole question around dopamine, and we see this with women, especially when there's a pornography story involved. Well, he this and he that, so effing what? You do you, eyes on your own paper, glow up for you. Do it for you. Dial in your life. Be who you are in the world and let the freaking chips fall. That's what I got. I feel like that's because if you can't love you for you and the way that you be in the world, then what are you even here for?
So good.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
What are you even here for?
What are you even here for?
We're going to continue this in the back.
Yeah.
Get some food. We'll see you in the kitchen sessions.
See you guys
Bye,
there.
guys.